Biggest mistake business owners make is thinking they need to reinvent the wheel.
Most people don't realize that all the successful companies are running the same core systems.
That's why we're hosting the Home Service Hoorah, September 7th, 8th, and 9th in beautiful Pensacola Beach, Florida.
We're giving away the exact systems, playbooks, and operations we use to scale to multi-seven figures.
You're learning from real business owners that have been there and done that.
People who are in your exact position and scaled their business without losing everything.
Tickets will sell out, so register now at homeservicehoorah.com. Again, that's homeservicehoorah.com. Your truck is the most expensive billboard you'll ever own, and most of you are wasting it. My guest today has branded thousands of home service businesses and about to tell you exactly why the wrap on your truck might be costing you tens of thousands of dollars in jobs you'll never even know you lost. If you're running a home service business, whether you've got 2 trucks or 20, and you're trying to figure out how to break through that next ceiling, this episode is for you. So let's dive in.
Running a home service business is hard. So how is it that some people make it look so easy? Well, we'll tell you. This is the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. It's always good to hear the wins that successful contractors have. But have you ever thought that the best advice would be to hear about the speed bumps they encountered, the mistakes they've made along the way? We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want you to be successful and avoid the mistakes others have made. Let's get this party started. Welcome to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Now your host, Justin Deese.
Welcome back to another episode of Freedom Blueprint Podcast. I am your host, Justin Deese, and today, listen, this is a note-taker podcast episode here. Now, all of this stuff is going to be in the show notes as well, so you don't have to feel like you have to write it down, but I got a feeling there's going to be a lot of value being dropped all over this episode today. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest today, who is Dan Antonelli, the founder of KickCharge. And my guess is if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know who Dan is. I know that you have wrapped thousands of vehicles, and I know that you have created a different industry standard of what a wrap and what branding in general should look like. So, anyways, without further ado, Dan, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Justin. It's been an interesting journey for sure. This is actually our 31st year. And it still kind of blows my mind that I'm doing things that I did when I was 15 years old. So at age 15, I hand lettered my first service vehicle with paint. And, I still get that sense of excitement when I see one of our brands out there in the wild. Surprisingly, we don't do as much work as you might suspect in our actual community. Like there literally is not a well-branded company within 20 miles of my office, believe it or not. Like sometimes I want to start a home service company in my neighborhood because there's just no one that actually has a well-branded company here. But it's been a remarkable journey, and we're at, I think, almost 75 employees right now, which, again, it's just such an amazing group of talent and passionate people. And, we're super grateful that we get to, build these brands that change people's lives. And I can't think of a better thing to be spending time on. So I'm really fortunate and blessed to still be doing what I'm passionate about and to be surrounded by so much talent here that it's very, very humbling to see what these people do every day. Like it's just blows my mind. So it's been a great journey.
So I briefly touched on this a little bit earlier, but it really has become where when you see a brand, you're like, ooh, that's a KickCharge brand. Like it just has a artist touch to it. And I think it's really cool. But for anybody listening who's not sure about what all it is that you guys do, can you give us just an overview of like,
100%.
What is KickCharge? What does it do? What do you guys do?
So, we're a full service branding and digital marketing company. So a lot of our clients start with us on the branding journey. So we'll create a brand for them. Then we'll integrate the brand on their different channels. So we can do their brochures, we can do their uniforms, their business cards, their site signs, direct mail. And then the truck obviously is a very critical component because the truck honestly is probably the single most important application of your brand is how does it appear on a truck and how do we leverage that canvas and maximize the opportunity there. And then when those things are done, helping them with digital marketing and really trying to leverage the story of that particular brand, not only through visuals, but through the words that you read on the website. Like what makes this company unique? What do they stand for? What do they believe in? And how does that story impact me as a homeowner and make me want to do business with you as a company?
Well, I mean, in marketing, and people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Exactly.
And I think there's such an importance of the story. And there's a lot of, again, I've got a lot of friends that have worked with you over the years. That story really becomes that like and trust with that homeowner. So, tell me, what is the importance of that brand being the same across all platforms?
Yeah.
Or is it even important?
No, that's a great point, and that's what I love about what we get to do is consistency across all the touch points. So no matter where that homeowner is in the journey of choosing a contractor to work with, maybe they saw the truck, maybe they went to the social media page, maybe they saw a website, or saw a brochure, or got handed a business card. Like every single touch point along that journey should be consistent and should be personifying who this company is, why you might choose them, and what I might expect if I actually hired them. And, you mentioned something just before about know, like, and trust. And, we look at trust as being something that is established before that homeowner actually picks up the phone to call you or goes on your website and books a job or your technician rings the doorbell. Like, what are we doing to establish trust, to set the expectation of what that deliverable looks like? Because if I can control what that homeowner believes about that experience, especially if they believe it's going to be a premium experience, then we'll have much less friction in the sales process, right? So much less resistance to higher cost, higher average tickets, because I believe as a homeowner, based on everything I've been presented, that there's a reason why I might expect to pay a premium for this particular service. And as far as the know part, in terms of know, like, and trust, the know part is just the idea of using brands as a mechanism to become visible in the community that we're serving. So leveraging every single opportunity that we can to maximize every single impression. So, there's studies that talk about how many times it takes for someone to know your brand, how many impressions it may take. And, a lot of studies put that number somewhere between 15 and 20 times. Well, what if we could cut that to 5 times or less? Like, what would that mean to our marketing spend? And so the idea of disruption, I certainly talk about it in my book, is maximizing that impression to deliver a promise while also still being memorable and hopefully living in someone's mind for recall later on. And I want to say none of this stuff is very complex, but I don't think many people really think about it in terms of distilling it into that process, right? So I see the truck, I think something about the experience. It's different enough for me to file it away. And then in 2 months, I've got a problem with my air conditioner. What was the name of that company that I saw driving by that was really cool and not generic, not sun and snowflakes, and so if I can, a couple of those impressions and then they start seeing it and they're like, oh my God, I see these guys all the time. I see these guys all over. I've seen it on my neighbor's driveway. I've seen it in my community. So the trust is starting to be established because it's visible. And then what I'm being presented with, name, tagline, visuals, is making me feel something or connect with that particular company. And anytime you can make a connection beyond just the obvious, you are more likely to be remembered by them later on.
Yeah, so I know one of the brands that you helped work on was Gettle, and it's always interesting because they have such an incredible story that even homeowners that I know that live in the areas that they service, they can mimic their commercial, and they already know the story about the boy with the flashlight, and they're not even in our space.
Right. Yeah, it's wild.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and that was probably I think it was probably 15 years ago that we did that brand for Ken, and I think it was one of the rare examples that a client came to us already having an idea or notion of what that brand story was going to be. And so it was our job to flesh that out and visually represent what that brand story would be. But, it blows my mind when when I'm in Phoenix or I'm in Vegas and I see that brand. I mean, I got to personally work on that brand with my illustrator, and to see what that has grown into, and how many lives have been impacted by that brand, how many jobs have been created. Like that's a really great illustration of our why and what we exist for, right? So just seeing how critical that role played in their growth is certainly just very rewarding for us to see. And working with Ken's just such a great operator and such a good guy to work with, and you learn so much just being around visionaries like Ken. But that process was fun. It was originally not like, the boy is actually Ken's son. I don't know if you knew the story, but
Duncan.
But originally it was not Ken's son. It was actually my neighbor that it was modeled after. And I had a neighbor that was the exact perfect age. He was 10 years old. He had freckles. We bought the hat that the boy was wearing, like the newspaper boy hat, and the overalls, and we illustrated the whole thing. And then we sent it to Ken, and Ken's like, "Oh yeah, this is great. I love it. Let's move forward." And then like we start the process of actually doing the illustration, which is crazy amounts of labor. Like I think that illustration was north of like 60 or 70 hours to actually illustrate the boy.
Wow.
And then he says, "Well, hey, it'd be really cool. Like we should model this after my son." And I'm
You're like, where was that 40 hours ago?
yeah. And I'm like, this is information that might've been useful like a week ago. But, so then like he tried to find some pictures of his son at that age. He didn't have a lot. It wasn't the right lighting. And so we kind of had to really, work hard to get it dialed in so that it looked legit. Right. But it was kind of a cool story. And I got to hang out with his son a few times and meet him firsthand. And I just thought it must be pretty cool to have the entire brand based on a 10-year-old version of yourself. So anyway.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So obviously Gettle's a giant brand. And I think a lot of times when people see a lot of the brands that you work on, their brain goes to large company, which, I mean, I think that's by design, right? But what is the average size of a company that you work with?
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting because many of them were not large when they started with us. Even Gettle, I think, was probably 3 or 4 million in revenue at the time, and was losing money, I think, at the time too. It wasn't even profitable before Ken took it over. I would say on average, most of our clients are probably in the 1.5 to 3 million range, but we have tons of startups. We have tons of people that are just, 2, 3, 400 in revenue, and they understand that where they want to go, it's going to be harder to get there unless they can get this foundation correct. And I think that that's the most critical thing, is getting that foundation correct, because that affects all the KPIs that matter most, right? So when you look at booking rates and close rates and average tickets, even percentage of ad spend, like all those things are going to be very much affected by the brand and the consumer's perception of the brand. And often I want to say too, like we have companies that I think they do a great service. They just don't look like they do a great service. Right. So from my perspective, I was like, well, that's easy. Like I can make any company look like they're amazing. I just can't control what happens after they ring the doorbell. But if they're already doing well from an operational perspective and they've got ops dialed in, then this is just like adding gasoline to the fire, because now you're just really leveraging how great they really are with how great they're perceived to be. Right. And if those things come together, that's typically like a recipe for success.
I think most people would be a little bit shocked to hear the range that you said, which I think it's great. So I was telling you earlier, so when I was reading your book, there was a couple things that really I went, but one of the things was when we first launched our last business, when we first got the trucks to the time they got wrapped, there was like a 6-week time period, because waiting on all the stuff, and I'm impatient, so I was ready to go. And it went from nobody knowing who we were, and we had, 4 or 5 trucks that hit the road at the same time. All of a sudden, people are calling and texting me going, dude, your trucks are everywhere.
Right.
And I'm thinking, it's the same number of trucks.
Right. And that's it. And that's just
But now
the
they
power
stand
of
out.
branding. Yep. That's just the power of branding. I mean, we have clients that have one truck and they get that same response. Oh, I see you guys all over. And, you know, the owner's chuckling to themselves because they've got one truck. And it's, again, the idea of maximizing that particular impression, right? Because if it was a white van blending in, there's no reason for me to register that in my mind. But I see it. I see this cool truck and it's different than everyone else. The colors are different. I see it once. And then maybe I see it, you know, 2 days later or 3 days later. But now I'm thinking, oh, man, I'm seeing these guys all over. And it's just like, well, you think you're seeing them all over. It's the same thing what you think about sometimes with cognitive bias when you buy a red car of a certain make and then
Reticular
you think
activating
you're
system,
seeing it
man.
all
Yeah.
over. You're not really seeing it all over, but it's meaningful to you, and now you're seeking it out, and it's more relevant to you at that point. So absolutely, we hear that often. Yeah, for sure.
So there was another part in the book you were talking about that really resonated with me too, because as we grew, we'd start doing a little bit of stuff on Facebook and a little bit of billboards and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. In the book, you were talking about each of those people want to put like their own spin.
Right.
And it was frustrating because then at the end of the day, they all looked totally different. And there wasn't this brand guide that it took me quite a few years to figure out the importance of that. But that's a lot of what you guys help people with, right? Like they're going to have this brand guide that's going to be clear as they present their brand, and as they use these other companies, they're now going to be able to go, no, dude, here's the roadmap, here's the blueprint, here's the codes, follow it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think I may even use the term in the book, fanatical consistency, as it relates to branding being integrated across the channels. And for us, when we have obviously the opportunity to control that, then we know for sure, no matter where that anyone is on that journey, it is dialed in and it is on brand 100%. One of the frustrating things is when we don't have the opportunity to do some of the other assets later on. And I'll see a Facebook ad and I'm Facebook friends with the owner, and I'll take a screenshot and I'll send him a message. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just like, dude, what happened? Like, where did this font come from? Like, where did this color come from? It's not even in the brand guide. So, you know, I'm very OCD about that stuff, but there's a reason why I'm OCD. You know, can you imagine suddenly, you know, Coke deciding that it's going to introduce blue into its palette, like randomly? Like, would they ever do that? No, because they're protecting the brand identity at every single touch point. So when you have multiple vendors handling different aspects of your marketing, sometimes the brand gets diluted, especially if you don't have a brand guide for them to follow. But even sometimes having a brand guide for them to follow, whatever designer's on the job, maybe he's like, hey, this would be really cool if I just use this font instead. And I'm just like, oh my God, like you're killing me here. Like, why did we invest all this money in branding if now we're going to start being inconsistent and diluting it? So just again, like little things like that may not seem like a significant issue, but I want the customer any single time they see anything related to your company to know immediately where that's coming from. And when you introduce those other aspects, suddenly it becomes a little confusing for them and not ideal.
And so in my head, I'm thinking about consistency, right? Like for typically when customers are working with service businesses, consistency is what they want, right?
Sure.
And so I think subconsciously, I mean, maybe customers pick that up and they go, there's not, even if they don't know it, but it's the consistency. Are they going to show up on time? Are they going to do what they say they're going to do? If there's a problem, are they going to return? Like that consistency level, I feel like subconsciously they lose. Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, again, like I went to the website, but then the guy rolling up in the truck, it looks different. Same company, is it? You know, and if you have to have them have that second of pause, like asking that question, or when they hand out the business card, but it looks slightly different than the uniform the guy's wearing. And they've already been on the social media channels, but that looked slightly different. Like, so, you know, there's an element of trust that's built up over that repetition. And if that repetition is very consistent, then there's a certain level of expectation about what those different touch points would be. And you know, for us, even just to get granular to the sense of even the equipment sticker that you're going to put on that piece of equipment like should be dialed in and should be branded. Like it should look exactly the way the other pieces look. And I should know immediately what company is being represented. So it's one of those things where it's not often talked about as far as how critical consistency is across channels. And I think there aren't really a lot of companies probably like us that soup to nuts can handle every single aspect of it. Maybe, there's great digital marketing companies, there's some branding companies, very few put those pieces together. And therefore that's oftentimes when you see some of the dilution happening within the actual brand standards.
So for anybody who's listening to this, who's thinking, well, I've got a white van with a sticker on it and I feel like I'm not big enough for this, or they think they need to wait till tomorrow. For those owners, when would you say is the best time to make this investment in their business?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, the best time was yesterday. The second best time is today, and the worst time is honestly tomorrow. And I think until you understand the tax that you're paying for being unremarkable, you won't ever understand why it's important to invest in branding. But it's sometimes ironic to me because it's the same companies that are hating on how much they are endeared to Google for their lead gen, how much every month their credit card's getting whacked for LSA and PPC, and yet it's the same people that are virtually invisible in the community that they're serving. And so there's a cost to that invisibility. There's a cost to no one knowing that you exist. And that cost is, comes over time, but it's like the death by 1,000 cuts. Like, you don't really feel it as much because like, oh, well, it's just $1,000 this month for Google. It's just another 2,000, so you just keep paying these numbers forever. And I think the other part too, especially as you look at acquisition costs and then you look at booking rates and close rates, again, those KPIs are going to be affected by the consumer's perception of who you are as a company. So imagine that with weak branding, your booking rate is 50%. But imagine if before they pick up the phone to call you, they already think that you're qualified and they think you're going to be a great company. And let's imagine your booking rate goes to 60% and you do 50 calls a week. Well, what exactly would that translate into additional revenue if your average ticket is $2,000 a ticket, right? So when you start actually looking at how just changing some of these KPIs and fixing some of the challenges that are inherent in the brand that you have that are affecting those KPIs, you're like, oh my God, like if I just improve this by 10%, that would equate to this much more in revenue. And then is the investment in branding really expensive, or is not investing in branding really expensive? Right. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. And it's crazy because the customer acquisition cost is not ever going to go down. I don't right. suspect.
Yeah.
For a while people were like, oh, well now there's going to be AI and AI will tell you. AI is going to capitalize on it. They're going to figure out how to charge businesses for it. Google was the same way, right? When they first came out with like the LSAs, it was really cheap. Even pay-per-click, I remember paying like 75 cents back in the day. And that is long gone now. Yeah. Like that's not a thing anymore. So that's only going to get more expensive. And being memorable, because if somebody has seen your brand and they see it over and over again and they inherently have this trust already built in. I mean, when they call you, they've already decided. They're not price shopping you, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And again, like the idea of that 5 Mile Famous and what can you be doing as a owner to become 5 Mile Famous? And everyone is so quick to just throw money at digital. And I understand that digital obviously has to be a very big part of your marketing budget, but few companies want to take the time to invest in the community. They don't do things like attending home shows. They don't do things like participating in community events like 4th of July parades or Halloween parades. I think Stephanie from Anchor is a great example of someone that has truly embraced how important community relations are to her business so that people aren't typing in, where she's at and saying air conditioning repair near me. They're typing in Anchor Heating and Air because, oh my God, I remember these people, they were at the parade. I remember these people, they sponsored the Little League. I remember these people because I saw them here, right? So those grassroots efforts just have such a tremendous impact on, again, living in someone's mind and signifying to the people of the community, hey, we're here to serve you. Like, we're part of this community. We're not private equity. Like, that's another common thing where people are like, how do I compete against private equity? Like, well, do the things that they're not doing, right? Show the people that you are from this community, that you care about this community, you're contributing to this community. And those grassroots efforts just yield tremendous dividends. It's just people don't want to take the time. Like, it's hard to commit to saying, okay, we're going to send the team out on a Saturday to sit at an event or to be in the parade or to have the wrap truck pulling a trailer and throwing candy out. Like, I was literally I remember being at a Halloween parade where my daughter was in the marching band, and I'm waiting on the street, and there's thousands of people on this route. It's like a 1 mile route, and all these trucks are coming by and different companies, and they're handing out candy. And I'm just thinking to myself, I have nowhere else to look right now. I have nothing else to do but just watch what's going by at 2.5 miles an hour. And those impressions, like, you can't buy that exposure. And it was like $150 to participate in it. So you want to tell me where you're going to have that many eyeballs on your brand demonstrating that you're a part of this community for $150, right? But yet, let me just write a check to Google and do some LSA, and I'm going to pay, $75 for the click or $50 for the click, right? So it's not, I want to say, sometimes I say it's not sexy to do it, but it's probably not really the right word, but it takes time and it's an investment. But I think people get so caught up in how hard they need to go on digital. And I'm just like, listen, don't forget about the grassroots stuff. Get your name in front of the people you're trying to serve and demonstrate to them how important it is. Like, I literally have a carpet cleaning company that we did the branding for that invested $35,000 this year to sponsor every single soccer team, every single softball team, and I think it was one other team, the basketball teams, and their name is on the back of every single jersey. So there's hundreds and hundreds of families that their child is wearing the name of this carpet cleaning business. And again, do you think now any one of those parents, when they need carpet cleaning, is going on Google and typing in carpet company near me? Or are they going to just type in the name? So that's an extreme. And I'm really excited to hear some of the results because he's doing it now, like it's happening right now. And, but I think he was, again, at the time, just how much money he was continuing to spend on Google. And he's like, I'm not seeing the ROI on Google. My acquisition costs are so high. And, let's do this and let's be visible. And not only that, they have a mascot with this brand that is a physical mascot as well. And they go with the physical mascot to some of these games and they interact with all the people that are at the game. So they hand out candy. The parents like, oh, let me take a picture with you. Like, so again, like it's really, grassroots organic work, but I think it's really important. Again, know, like, and trust. Like, I saw you at the game. Like, you sponsor my kid's team. Like, the guy that's sponsoring your kid's team is probably not ripping off the community, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think, again, just diversify, but never forget how important it is to get that visibility, to get that 5 mile famous. We look at site signs as another thing to invest in. Very simple thing to be doing. Don't make it look like every other square white site sign, though. Like, make it visually interesting and different. So I want to stop and look and say, oh, I see that they got a new air conditioning system. Oh, that's cool. And file it and register it, right?
So it's interesting you just told the story about the soccer team because when I was a kid growing up, we had a sponsor that was a door and window company of our baseball team. And same thing, they basically sponsored like 5 or 6 different age groups to make sure and hit them all, right? Well, I wasn't the avatar at the time because I was 12. But when I got to the point when I was an adult and I needed doors and windows, I was super happy to call them. And the owner was still there. So it was like a cool conversation to tell him, like, because I'm pretty sure that my one order probably paid for all of that for the entire time because doors and windows are expensive. But
sure.
But at the same time, every time I've ever needed doors and windows now, that's the guy I call. And it just was because of that local sponsorship. To another point you made too, obviously private equity is a huge conversation in our space. And I think, I hope anybody listening took note of what you just said. you're not going to beat the private equity businesses in the Google game. They will run you broke. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
But they're not hanging out at the baseball games and the softball games and the soccer games and all the local content. Most of them are. I don't actually know any that are. I know most of them that I'm aware of, the first thing they do is cut that kind of stuff out. So I think it's definitely very, very important to make sure you're hitting those things so that you're top of the mind, because the cost to hit your name versus plumber near me.
Yeah. It's
big gap in that.
It's crazy. And on that point too, Justin, I want to share a tip for people that are competing against private equity in their space. I think one thing for people to understand and consider is that most homeowners still don't know the difference. They actually don't really understand or know what is happening with the consolidation. And so we encourage our clients, and we actually have a template on our website that anyone can download. It's on our resource page. And it's a letter that we recommend that they send out to all their existing clients, talking about why family-owned matters, who we are as a company, what contributions we make to this community, and letting them know that a lot of the companies that they may be getting estimates from are owned by Wall Street instead of Main Street. And getting that message out there. Like, we even went so far as to have some of our clients using like CHIRP before the technician even rings the doorbell, and having a message from the owner just saying, hey, we're really excited for the opportunity to come to your home today. Just want to let you know we are family owned and we're proud of that. There's a lot of things happening in the industry you may not even be aware of. And this is what makes us different. We sponsor the Little Leagues. We're part of this community. We're grateful for the opportunity to serve you. And I just want to let you know how much it means for me to serve you and your family. Right. So again, like, before the tech gets to ring the doorbell, we're hitting them up with what is different about our service and why that matters to you as a homeowner. So stuff like that, I think, is really important. But a lot of complaints about how hard it is to compete against PE, but you don't see a lot of tangible actions taken to put the messaging out about why that's actually important for me as a homeowner. So
that's really good. Yeah, because I do see companies that do say that, okay, we're locally owned and operated, but really a lot of times, especially when you're talking about AC, if it's 105 outside, it's more about who gets here fastest sometimes, right? Again, I've had service people pull up to my house before that got out of their truck, and I was like, they're not coming to my house. Like, it's not. They might be the nicest person on the entire planet, but somebody gets out looking ratty, they open their service door van and tools fall out, they're not coming to my house. It's just not going to happen. So, but those companies also aren't spending and investing in branding and training and things that make you a really good company. So
absolutely.
Well, cool, Dan. Any last thoughts before we wrap today?
I would say the one thing that I think people underestimate when you think about branding, and a lot of people just associated with, okay, well, it's going to be this cool new logo. It's going to we'll put on the truck, we'll put on the website. I think a lot of owners underestimate what it does for culture internally and what it does for their mindset as an owner. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't start the conversation with us saying, hey, Dan, it's really important that we build a better culture for my company, so I want to get a new brand. They don't think about it in that terms, but they find out afterwards, after experiencing what the brand does, how much it impacts culture, how much it impacts recruitment and overall morale of the company, and what it does to their mindset. So it basically re-energizes them about their own business. And they get really excited about, hey, putting on the new swag and seeing the new truck roll in, and then sharing that enthusiasm. Enthusiasm translates downward into the team. So as the owner is more energized about the business, it's obviously going to translate down to the people. And then the messaging behind why we're doing this as a company is because I'm trying to create a better future for you as an employee. I'm trying to build something here that you can grow into, that you will have a long-standing future and a great place to be a part of. And when you hear owners talk about how hard sometimes it is to recruit great talent and recruit A players, sometimes you have to be introspective about that question, and you have to ask yourself, does this actually even look like a company that I want to be a part of? Would I want to apply for a job here? What kind of van am I going to get if I apply here? What does my uniform look like? And people want to distill it down to how much money someone's going to get paid, right? And of course, how much you can earn is going to be a factor. But
Right.
do I want to be a part of something that I'm excited about, that I see a future, that they're growing, that they're creating more opportunities for people into leadership roles and things like that. And that's, again, a lot of the companies that have hired us have start really small, but then they've grown and grown and grown. And that enthusiasm and that excitement, I think, is something that most owners underestimate the impact that piece. It's like one of those things that doesn't show up on the balance sheet. Right? You can't measure mindset and enthusiasm and culture shift. But I mean, you could look at turnover, you could look at recruitment cost, and you could see some of the metrics being affected by there. So I just think it's one of those things that, especially if you're struggling in some of those areas, ask yourself the hard question, does the brand I have today actually reflect what we deliver on a daily basis to our customers? And if you could say yes, honestly, if you say, oh my God, we look as good as we perform, great, then don't change your brand. But if it looks like the company that was 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago, when you didn't have a budget to invest in branding and you did the best you could, but now you've just kept it and you kept on keeping it and you never evolved. So, I think thinking about all those things together, it's not just about the marketing KPIs, it's about all these other aspects. So,
And all the things you mentioned do affect the top line. They do affect the revenue, and they do affect the bottom line. So that's really good. So, Dan, that was all good stuff, man. That was good. So anybody listening, they go, I got to reach out. I got to find out more and see what it would take to work with you and your team. How would they go about doing that?
Sure. You can hit us up at kickcharge.com and send us a message, or you can hit me up on Facebook. I always make this offer to people. Like, if you have a brand right now and you're not sure about it and you just want feedback on it, like, I'm not a hard sell kind of guy. If you want to, message me and say, hey, here's my truck, what do you think? I'm happy to give people feedback. And I would say also too, like, even if you never hire KickCharge, get a copy of Branded Not Blanded. There's just so much great content. I basically took, 15 years and 3,000 home service brands and what I learned over that time, and I put it into a book, because I'm like, if people read this book before they started their business, they would avoid so many mistakes down the road that will need to be corrected and just will cost more to correct later on. So I'm always happy when I hear how much the book has affected people and impacted them, because that's why you do it, and I think the trades have been great. I'm super blessed and fortunate for everything the trades have been able to provide to my team and my family. And I just thought it'd be something good to put in writing. You don't make any money writing books, that's for sure. But I'm like, if I could help some people avoid some of these mistakes, and even if they can't afford to work with a branding agency, they at least go into the process knowing as much as possible about it.
That is good. And again, all that information will be in the show notes, including how to get in touch with KickCharge to get more. And like Dan said, hit him up on social media. He's willing to jump in and give you some feedback. Can't ask for more than that. So Dan, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us today.
You got it. Thanks, Justin.
You've been listening to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Information is useless if not applied. So take what you've learned and go and implement it. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media at Freedom Blueprint for Home Services and hit the website at www.freedomblueprintpodcast.com. See you next time.